Hello, I'm Karenna Gore. I am the founder and director of the Center for Earth Ethics at Union Theological Seminary in New York City. I really appreciate you inviting me to speak with you. I want to especially thank the Institute for Religious Studies and the Faith in Climate Initiative. 1 year ago, I had the opportunity and the great pleasure to travel to Brazil, and I was in Recife, and it was especially an honor to be part of an interfaith gathering at the Kahal Zur Israel Synagogue in Recife, the oldest synagogue in the Americas, in a wonderful ceremony and program in which people spoke from the diversity of spiritual and religious traditions of Brazil about the importance of coming together to protect our climate, to protect life on Earth. It was really one of the highlights of my life. And I want to remember my great friend, a friend to my father, Alfredo Circus, who was the one who invited me there. And we sadly lost him just a few months ago. I know that many of us are still grieving, and I want to lift him up and honor him as we connect in this way. We are meeting now in the context of this coronavirus pandemic, and I want to extend condolences to any of you all who have lost loved ones, who have suffered or been sick, and to all those affected by the anxiety and the economic consequences of this pandemic as well. It is teaching us something, it is revealing something which surely will be part of our evolution and growth in understanding how we're dealing with the climate crisis. For one thing, the COVID pandemic shows that the laws of nature have no regard for political boundaries of nations or states. We are one world, we are one human family and one community of life. And so we must think that way as we approach the climate crisis. I am also very moved to be joining you at this moment in time where my country, the United States, has announced that we will be rejoining the Paris Accord, that very important agreement from 2015, in which all of the countries of the world came together to create a plan to really confront this terrible existential crisis and to overcome it. The reason why we are rejoining is because we just had an election. And I know you all know this, but I wanted to give you my perspective on it. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were just elected, and climate was very much on the ballot. It was an issue that was raised, and there was a stark contrast between the two candidates. President-elect Joe Biden has made clear that climate is a top priority. He has listed his 4 immediate priorities as COVID, the economy, climate, and dealing with systemic racism. And he just named former Secretary of State John Kerry to be special envoy on climate change. I watched John Kerry give remarks just a few nights ago, and he said this, which I think is quite interesting for those of us working in the intersection of religion and climate. He said, quote, "President Joe Biden will trust in God, and he will also trust in science to guide our work on Earth to protect God's creation." This signals an understanding that engaging religion will be crucial to the approach that the Biden administration takes on climate action. And it signals us, those of us who work in this intersection, how important our work is. My own work is centered at Center for Earth Ethics, as I mentioned. We draw from the world's faith and wisdom and indigenous traditions to solve the ecological crisis, to join with others to solve it. We work through education, convening, public discourse, and movement building. I really believe that interfaith dialogue is a powerful force for good in the world. The reason is that it distills values that we hold in common, regardless of doctrine or dogma. And it also can help unveil or unmask or reveal the assumptions and the belief systems that are in secular society. This is very important because we have a value system now, the dominant value system globally has, and certainly the economic paradigm, has been based on short-term monetary gain, no matter how destructive it is. And this doesn't measure pollution. It doesn't measure depletion of resources and of the carbon sinks of the world. And it doesn't measure inequality of outcomes and opportunity. There's an attitude of domination towards nature, as if there were no limits and no reciprocal obligation of care. And we've seen these two mega trends shape the world that we live in today, the pollution and the depletion. Of course, this value system does not affect all equally. And one of the things about the climate crisis is that it really pushes us to think about our moral obligations to one another across space and time and even species. I have a friend at the Church of Sweden who says in any room where there are decisions made about development policy, there should be 3 empty chairs for those most affected and least likely to have a voice. And that is for the poor and marginalized in the world, future generations, and all non-human life. When you think about it, had we considered those 3 empty chairs, we would not be in this perilous situation today. I think of the teaching of the great Buddhist thinker Thich Nhat Hanh, who said, "We are here to awaken to the illusion of our separateness." We can see now the impacts of the results of this system, this mistaken value system. We see the storms, the droughts, the wildfires, such as those that have been raging on the west coast of my country, the United States, just this past year, the rising sea levels, and so on. And the scientists warn us that if we do not hasten our transition to clean, renewable energy, if we don't protect the carbon sinks of the world immediately, then of course, this will get incrementally, exponentially worse. Brazil is so important to the whole world. I have been so moved by the diversity and the richness of Brazilian culture, the wisdom within it, and I've also been struck by the potential for leadership in the world in changing the economic development paradigm, which we so badly need to do. I also believe that from Brazil, you can lead the world in understanding the moral and spiritual dimensions of this crisis. And that can be done through respectful interfaith dialogue, especially when it is inclusive of indigenous traditions. One thing is for sure, as important as data and science and technology are, they are not enough for us to overcome this crisis. We know that half of the greenhouse gas emissions that are in the atmosphere right now have been put there in the last 20 years, which is the time that we have known the most about this cause and effect crisis, and the time when we have had the most available alternatives. And so we must look deeper. We must look at the root causes, and we must engage people on the level of morals and values and ethics and faith. And remember that religion can and has played a very powerful role in the world, in social change in the past. For example, Bishop Desmond Tutu said that scriptural teachings made a difference to ending apartheid in South Africa. Mahatma Gandhi's notions of satyagraha, meaning truth force, and ahimsa, or nonviolence, helped to bring down imperial rule in India and inspire many others around the globe. And of course, in my country, the United States, it was a Baptist preacher, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who rose to lead the civil rights movement, calling for a revolution of values, drawing from those ancient sacred teachings that he held dear, and inspiring people across racial and economic lines to come together for a better society. At its best, religion can create a sense of belonging that goes beyond partisan or political lines and really call us to be our better selves. We know how much is at stake. We know that we must partner across the world. And my hope is that I can join with you in some way, that we can be in dialogue, can join forces. And I want to thank you so much for the wonderful work that you're doing and give my very best wishes for this important meeting that you're having today. Thank you.